Good morning. It's July 21st, 2023. This is the Parks and Cemetery Committee. Present today are Parks and Cemetery Supervisor Marty Peterson, Public Works Director Troy Kruger, City Attorney Paul Jensen, and Councilman Schramm and Councilman Frank. Today will be, it looks like, focused on budgets. And first of all, we will just start off saying to Parks and Cemetery, nice job in the regional tournament. Went smoothly. Everybody had nothing but compliments for our facilities as I was up there. It was a great 2 days. Troy, 3, yeah, Marty. Troy, I'm going to allow you and Marty to direct council through your proposed budgets, and I'll allow council to have questions or comments as you work through.
Well, you got two sheets in front of you. First one you're seeing, this is just Marty and I going through our budget and what we've spent to date, and then adjusting those numbers to make sure that we have enough operating money. So you'll see on this sheet that you'll have year-to-date activity. 2023, so that's what we've spent to date or close to date, and then what was actually budgeted for 2023, and then the written in numbers, or where Marty and I made adjustments. And I guess it's easiest just to go down these. I forgot my glasses again today. Legal and advertisements. The personal services is that's done by the office. So I guess these numbers are still, I think these numbers are still, well, they're accurate numbers now, but I don't think it's not going to work in sewer either to do that 50-50 split that Shander had, or somebody had proposed. Yeah. Because it really affects. If it was a flip-flop deal where streets was, I mean, it works great for streets because streets has almost 3 times the budget that cemetery does, but there's only one full-time person paid out of cemetery. Well, there's 2 now, but because of the difference in the budget amounts, that really affects. So it was proposed. I don't know if either of you guys have heard this or not. They looked at this as something to do, and I don't know where. She's not here to explain it, but anyways, what they were looking to do is like Marty's got Parks and Cemetery, Mark's got Water and Sewer. So what they were looking to do is they were looking to take that supervisor's departments and then just do a 50-50 split with personal services, just to kind of balance them out. Or I don't, you'd have to hear that explanation from the finance office. But we saw it in streets and sanitation. It did not work in streets and sanitation because of the amount of employees that streets had versus what sanitation had. It put too big of a burden on sanitation to absorb all those personal services for, to split up for that 50-50 split. And because of the difference in the budgeted amount for parks versus cemetery, it's going to be kind of the same thing. It's going to just take away too much of cemetery's operating funds. So we're going to go back to, last I heard, we're going to go back to personal services will be just for the people in that department. So if your paycheck comes out of cemetery, all your personal services will come out of cemetery. If you work for parks, they'll come out of parks, water, sewer, on down the line. So those numbers should be pretty accurate. So I'll just go, if you guys have any questions, but we'll just kind of give you, if we change the number, you'll either be able to see it, or we'll give you a brief explanation of why. But legals and advertisements, we did up that to $1,000, and we've spent year to date $670. And We did do some advertising. We did do some stuff for the cemetery. We put out some notices this year. I think one was in the paper, but then we were shorthanded, so we had a job application. I guess all those things add up in a big hurry, but that's what. But we're already over our 500 that we put in there, so we want to cover ourselves. Rentals, 5,000. We still we're going to ask for the same amount. There's just pieces of equipment that we don't own, and we haven't spent any to date. But repairs and maintenance, 5,000. We left that at 5,000. Managed IT, that's our computer guy that and those were projected numbers by the finance office earlier this year. We didn't really know exactly what they were, so we bumped it up a little bit. We did not budget for it last year, and it's already at $700. And then I'll talk with Shander about that. Some of that might have been the implementation of her of this new time clock system, ExecuTime. So some of that cost might be that. So we may not need to budget for that, but I'll ask her about that. HR testing, that's when the random drug testing, and then if you're in that department, you pay for that out of that department. So we did bump that up just a little bit. I'm sure we're done with that for the year, but that's also for the reason that's also really high in that department is Parks Department. When all the summer kids come on, they're all required now to go up and give a urine test at the hospital. So that's something in the past where the general is paid for it. It's just went through the finance office, but a couple years ago we broke that out. So now parks are they're paying for that expense. So that gets to be, it's probably, we're pretty close there, but just depending upon the number of kids that we get every summer, that we have to pay for all those tests. Supply line. So what was budgeted was for 35,000. That's for all supplies. So if you look at Marty's, if you look to the left, you'll see that I think in parks we go to 4261.19 or something. Don't we go?
18.
We go pretty high, but what we've done different in the past there is we've just budgeted a set number, and then it comes out of 4261. What we've done is we've given each one of those 4261.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, so that Marty can see exactly where his money's going throughout the year. So it might be shop supplies, it might be weed control, it might be fertilizer, it might be mower repairs. But we broke all that out so he can see where his budget's going. So we can better explain to you guys when we're asking for more money, if we're cutting back, we can give an explanation on why we're doing that and where the funds are going. And we did not adjust that. Fuel and gas, that was another one that we didn't know where we were going to be at. Parks has, we just got it straightened around in Marty's department, but on fuel, he has cards for like his mowing. We have a fuel card. It's in a little case down there, and it all comes out of parks. So at the half point of the year, we flip that over, and now all his fuel will be coming out of cemetery. So he spent zero on fuel in cemetery to date, and everything's come out of parks. So we budgeted $17,670, and we're way below that. So we adjusted that number to 7,000, and that's with the price of fuel coming back down over the winter and early part of the year.
What price did you guys budget at per gallon?
We didn't. We just looked at how many gallons he's used so far this year, and it's just a rough number. When I did this, I had not heard from her yet, so that we can have the same number for all departments.
I'm hearing $3.75 per gallon. Last year we were at $4.65.
That's for diesel and unleaded,
And I believe it was just on the unleaded.
not just on the, you don't use any diesel, do you?
Little tractor. The John Deere tractor.
Oh, yeah.
Not
no,
much.
Not enough to make a difference.
Just wanted to get you that price that everybody's budgeting at.
Yeah, I think I sat down with, I believe it was Kelly when I did streets, and we came up with a price, but we were looking at diesel and unleaded combined, and we came up with a combined price, and then we looked at how many gallons he'd used so far this year, just to come up with a simple number, but I also wanted to look back and see what, because we've got a little history now with the new fuel system. We can look back at 2022 and we can see if those numbers at the end of 2020, when we can look halfway through 2022 or look up until like the end of July, and we can see if we're consistent on our fuel usage. Like Parks, I'm guessing Parks is going to be pretty consistent, so it should give us a pretty good number to work off of.
That system, we have that software, I'm just curious,
It just tells you gallons.
doesn't tell you the difference between the two.
No, but when they pay the bills, they look at the total gallons that get charged to that department, and then you can go through.
right.
So you'd have to do it in two categories. You'd have to look at total gallons used, and then you'd have to look at the price that they paid. You'd have to go back like to June of last year and then do it to current or something like that. But we'll have really good numbers after this year, because that fuel system's I think it's only been in there like 18 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So what happened that in 2021 and 2022, we spent about the same amount of money on fuel? And in 2023, with what seems to me to be most of the parks usage should be about done, and we're 2,500 instead of 14,000. We're more than just parks being used for the fuel? Was this parks and cemetery combined then?
Yeah.
Or how'd we go from 14,000 to what, if we double the 2,400 or 2,500, we're gonna be at 5,000 instead of 14. How'd we get a $10,000 difference in amount that we used?
That's just the number that was projected, that fuel would cost us when we were budgeting last year.
But I'm not talking about budget, I'm talking about total activity in '21 was 14. Total activity, that's not budget, that's actually what we spent,
Oh.
was 14.5, and now we've actually spent 2,500. If we double it, we only spent 5,000 instead of 14,000. Where did that savings of fuel come from? Is somebody else, I mean, do we used to share the fuel with some other department? That's what I'm trying to figure out here. How can we more than cut it in half? I'm not sure that everything's right on what we're seeing here. Maybe that 2,500 is supposed to be 7,500. I don't know, I'm just,
The numbers are actually generated from Encode. The thing that I notice about the reports is these figures are coming from probably the end of June, which is about a month's worth of activity. I'm not sure that these, until she closes out at the end of this month.
okay,
which
so the
does-
2,500 may in fact be 7,500.
It may be, and she doesn't close out, in the finance office, they don't close out July until August 15th. So the July,
Let me get that, I have the actual number.
I would
get that for you.
be curious,
Yeah,
but
we're 2 months behind, so
Okay,
over
that's,
half of his summer is not on her sheet, because she doesn't.
okay, so our busy usage isn't even on, you don't have to go get it for me.
Oh,
I
I'm
understand.
I know we talked about it, so what we do is, I keep an Excel sheet
Yep.
just for this kind of stuff. So I print off my Excel sheet, and my numbers are year-to-date, so whenever these guys issue a PO, then I put it in my computer in my Excel sheet. So if it's come across my desk as there's an invoice and a PO issued, then I enter it in my system right away.
Okay.
So my numbers are like 2 weeks behind.
But
what-
that answers my question completely, okay? I mean, I don't need to see that number, I just, how in the hell could we be half as much? or
And I'm
a
thinking
quarter?
about now that we looked at it, your usage was, I think that's why we put it at 7,000, because I think we'd used like 7,400 or 7,500. And we hadn't taken anything out of cemetery
Use
yet.
that in cemetery.
So,
So you're gonna flip everything over to cemetery
Yeah.
for the rest of the
Now,
year?
now we have a tag in the box for cemetery.
and we adjusted cemetery's fuel accordingly to what, off of my numbers, what we've used to date. And so it's gonna come out.
Okay, that answers my question
And I-
completely, yep.
I think next year I'll switch the tags out monthly in the box. So in January, we're using parks, February, we're using cemetery,
I'm good with that.
yeah.
However you track it, the concern, I think Councilman Schramm's concern is in parks last year, you budgeted 14.5, we'll say 14.6 and 35, which was 18,000, and actual usage last year was 7,000 and 17,000, almost 25,000. I tend to believe that this number is low, and you will go over that also if you look back and compare those to prior years.
And in past years, we had never switched over. So cemetery, if you look on the back sheet on cemetery fuel,
Yeah, I'm adding the two together, and I see you guys shorting your budget about $10,000 on fuel to previous year's usage. In '21, total usage was almost 18,000, just under. In 2022, you had 35 and 14.5, which is 19,000, and you're budgeting 12,500 this year. I think you want to be cautious of that. I think you're
That's what
gonna-
I'm afraid of too, is,
Yeah,
not giving yourself enough, and I haven't been on the Parks Committee but, so you talk about switching cards, so you don't, like the cemetery doesn't have its own card.
It does.
If I fill my lawnmower, I use that card.
Right.
If I'm gonna mow the cemetery.
No,
Okay,
Parks has a card, cemetery has a card, we switch them. Just so there's one card hanging in the box, so, at a time. So,
okay,
so June, Parks will use gas, July, cemetery will use the gas all over town.
but all over town, the cemetery is paying for the gas.
Yeah, and Parks is paying for mowing the cemetery in a month.
Okay, I guess I don't understand the reasoning for
The-
that. If you're gonna make the cemetery live within its own budget and parks live within their own budget, because doesn't cemetery have like perpetual care fund that's supposed to come out of or not?
we can't spend that.
you can spend.
We have to
any-
ask you guys to spend it.
That's for
Yeah.
equipment though, right? Not for mowing?
No, actually, it's put in there for, perpetual care is put in there just for repairs to the cemetery. So,
Not for general maintenance?
no,
Right.
Oh, okay.
special situation.
And to further explain that, perpetual care, you have to maintain a minimum balance in that perpetual care count. Anything in interest that goes over that, then you can spend that interest down to that point.
I think it's 11,000.
I thought it was 11 too, but
What's your explanation of perpetual care?
Well, that's very close. There's a line that you're required to maintain, and I do not recall how that line is determined. But once you have to maintain that line, you cannot spend below it. But anything earned on that amount as interest, income, things like that, you can spend as long as it's spent directly on the care or upkeep or improvement of the cemetery.
And where does it get its principle strictly from the sale of plots?
As I recall,
And
yes.
fees to dig the graves and all that stuff?
Correct, yeah.
That's where we get our
The fees
invested amount
directly
of money,
paid
and then
to-
we can spend the interest, okay?
Correct.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
So your question on the, and maybe we can get it worked out, but where the challenge is with Parks and Cemetery is we have 3 John Deere mowers, we have 5 grasshoppers, 6 grasshoppers. Some of those mowers are cemetery equipment, but some of those mowers are parks equipment. When it comes to the mowers, most of the time the mowers get ridden by, during our summertime, the mowers get ridden by the kids. The kids go over to the fuel tank, they grab the one key out of there. It makes it much simpler. We could label those mowers, parks and cemetery, but when you kind of take a breakdown of where those mowers spend the most time, they spend 95% of their time in the parks. We mow the cemetery once a week, but we spend the rest of the week in the parks mowing. So even though that piece of equipment is technically under the cemetery paid for it,
Yep,
it's spending most of its life in the parks.
in the parks, okay.
Same with the John Deere tractor, I think there's a few pieces of equipment under cemetery, but not a whole lot. Cemetery does not have a big budget. Their
Yep.
total budget's, $100 and some thousand. So most of the equipment spends most of its time in the parks, doing, parks and the road ditches and the long mowing, all the lots around town that we own that we have to take care of and all, So it's a challenge to break down and just say that, this amount of fuel is coming out of the cemetery. Because so much more of our equipment is parks equipment, and when we go to mow the cemetery, we pretty much take the whole fleet of mowers over there and we go do the cemetery. And then we're done with it, and then we're out, and then we're back to doing other business. So it's a challenge to say what fuel gets spent in the cemetery, because so little of the time the equipment spends in the cemetery. It spends a majority of its time in the parks or doing road ditches or lots that the city owns. So we don't have a real good way to do that yet. And it would be difficult if every time we filled up, well, we're gonna go mow the cemetery, so let's use the cemetery card.
But
You know.
based on what you just told me, if you're mowing the cemetery one day a week, then put the cemetery cards in the gas that one day and forget it for the rest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It's just one more
especially-
thing to juggle,
Especially when you have,
you know.
when you have 8 kids, they're not gonna remember to do that. They just go to fill up. We have 2 cards in our box. Everything else is pretty specific to departments, every other circumstance. But we have 2 miscellaneous cards in there. One is parks, and the other one is for the diesel equipment in the streets. So it's just, yeah, it's not perfect. That's the one department where it's really hard to break out and say, we spend this much fuel out of this department, so. Utilities is just what we spend on propane and electricity. Parks and cemetery do pay their utilities for the ball fields. So they pay for irrigation, they pay for electricity. Cemetery pays for, obviously, their irrigation and then the Marty's buildings. So those numbers are just what they are. Capital improvements, we did not budget anything last year, we did not spend anything, but we did do, we did put 25,000 towards Bailey's Field. And year-to-date, we've spent 5,736. So that's that grant that we talk about all the time. And we still don't know the status of that. What Marty has done down there to date, you tell them what you've done, I guess.
Well, basically put in the backstop and net on Bailey's Field. Doors are in the works. Ron are just gonna help us out with them in the fall here, when he gets time. That'll come out of that.
So those weren't on the grant application. The backstops were, but I looked at the grant application, and it's fencing and it's backstops, it's a shade for the spectators, it's some concrete work. It's that kind of stuff. What Marty has spent to date, we will not be able to get, we won't be able to get refunded for. We haven't, because we haven't officially got the grant yet, so we're doing what we have to do down there, but not any more than we have to do. That's something that, in parks in general, we're gonna spend like, so we have the Bailey's complex, and those doors are about $5,000 a piece. That's
By the time they're installed.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna attempt to install them.
Yeah, I had that conversation last night at Leahy Bowl with
It takes a
somebody who
mason
thought
in.
that you guys should be able to install those, and I'm like, that's a $1,500 door.
It's a
It's
$2,500 door.
$2,500 now, and
And they're metal doors, and they're in a brick, those are brick buildings, so just attaching the door, and then, I don't know the first thing about doing a door on a brick building. I don't know if they build in a wooden, I know those down at Bailey's Field, because Ron Ernst installed them, and he put mortar in behind
The
them.
door
and-
frame is usually put in before the brick walls are.
Yeah, it's built with the building.
Yes,
Yeah, and he said they can be changed, but
It's a process.
agree. Well, you gotta hire a professional to do that, yeah.
So we
Sorry,
need-
Marty.
no, that's fine.
We need 6 doors throughout the city. We got Lady Bowl, McDonald's Park. They've got those totally kicked in. They're
They've
bad
been
shape.
bad a while.
The only thing that's protecting those doors right now is we have the metal cages that close over them, and those still work, and those are still on, and so that's what Marty uses right now. But the doors they don't close. There's gaps in them, and we need to get them fixed before winter. We're gonna.
And Ron has told you that he can't just replace the door itself and not the frame.
No, the hinge strap inside the frame's bent, and
Okay,
wind whipped them, ripped the hinges off, and
I
you know
understand,
how they
yep.
go.
yep,
And they have to be a special door because it's a bathroom, and there's one door in and one door out. They have to be out swinging doors rather than a typical in swinging door for safety purposes, because the nature of the building. So all that involved, it's a pretty substantial cost. It's gonna, it's $5,000, just figure $5,000 a door. And we're gonna pay, hopefully we can get some of those done this year and squeeze it out of his budget, but
Have to do 3.
we have to do 3, yeah. We have one, down at Bailey's Complex, how did that one come off?
Wind.
The wind?
Early this
So right now,
spring.
we have a plywood door in there,
yeah.
just to get us through the season, but pretty much everything's done now. But yeah, that one has to be done, and then,
Both of them out there, and the men's at Leahy.
how are the doors on the city park bathrooms?
They're fine for what
the building
the
is.
building is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Is this and this isn't something that happens very often, that these doors get caught by the wind, is it? Doesn't seem like Leahy's has been up there a long time before
right.
it got any damage.
But
Everything-
I'm getting them priced with the heaviest closure they can, safety chains, everything to try to prevent it
Yep,
from happening
yep.
again.
Well, because a lot of places you'll see a post at the 90-degree angle of the door, right in the sidewalk, so that the door can't open more than 90 degrees, which then you'll never have the hinges get ripped off there,
Yep.
okay? But does it looks like a post designed to stop the door. And it doesn't have to be 6 feet tall like the door is. It just has to be to where the door can hit it before it goes past that 90. We might want to consider that on all of our doors that the northwest wind can take.
Yep.
I'm guessing it would have to be at least 4 feet tall, 4 or 5 feet tall, otherwise it's a trip hazard.
Don't disagree, or it can be as tall as the door too, But anything that would stop that, we had to do that out at our church. And we used wrought iron
Yep.
to do that, because those south doors, the north wind would come around the door and it would just, or around the building, and it would just rip that door right off the hinge. We put those wrought iron side rails up and never had another problem after that. So,
Leahy Bowl's the worst.
Bailey too. I mean, they face that northwest wind, those men's bathrooms.
especially the men's bathroom up at Leahy
Yeah.
Bowl, that
And that could be hinged the other side.
could be, yeah.
And then we can either move the light switch or put a motion detector on it. And
Yep, that's probably as good an idea as putting a post in. Yep.
So hopefully we'll know something on the grant here before,
End of July, I believe.
That's when it's supposed to be, yeah, which is next week.
it's with the feds right now, and they're looking at our easements, and, we didn't hear any backlash on it from the last easement that we submitted, so hopefully they're good with what we've submitted, and we'll get word on that, but, so that's a matching grant. We spend $140,000, they give us $140,000, 50-50 match. So, we would really like to get Bailey's Complex, done, up to date. And we're looking at, outfield fences, obviously the old backstops are coming down. So there's gonna be a lot of fencing, and there's gonna be, we're doing anything that we can do it's just on, we can have some of the services hired out, but we're actually allowed to do we can actually turn in the materials, so we have materials to do the backstops, other than the nets, but we have the poles, and we did those for fairly reasonably this year, but
Are we doing all three fields?
Yep,
Okay,
Yes.
you're calling that the complex?
Yep.
Not just Bailey's Field?
nope, all
Okay,
three,
okay,
Bailey's Complex.
yep.
So that's just, and Marty and I have to refigure those numbers on what Rich submitted. So we have to go through and we have to get updated information on that, and we will get that by the next meeting. It's all changed. We submitted this almost a year and a half ago when this idea first got dreamt up. So I need to get current numbers, but they're, $140,000. We put $25,000 towards that project this year. We have what left to come, a batting cage?
I haven't ordered it yet, but yeah.
We tore the batting cage out down there. So Marty's been looking at a new batting cage, and it's a collapsible one that we can take down at the end of the year and store it, but it's got the mesh sides, and
Yeah. It's got the poles that are offset, so you're not ricocheting one off a pole. And
you look like you got a question.
I was going to ask if you talked to the Baseball Association and Softball Association. Maybe we just build a field house with 2 cages in there.
Maybe you could put that,
Let's go.
you
he
could
said.
put that portable batting cage in the community center.
We don't have a thrower, though. What he's buying is just the cage itself.
Yep. But you fold it up and haul it in the winter, right?
no, it's poles that go in the ground, in the sleeves. And you hang the net from them, cables. And then at the end of the year, you take them down. The sleeves are stay in the ground.
Take the net down,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, that add a lot of life to it.
100% I agree, yep.
You
Yep.
take the poles down because they just go on ground sleeves. Put a cap on the ground sleeves for the winter, and
But
Yep.
you took the thrower out and been working on that, didn't you?
I just cleaned it up and it's fine. It runs good. But I don't know if the city owns that. I think the
Probably not.
Little League does.
They have a lot of equipment that they put out there. About 4 or 5 years ago, at the time our boys were going through, or right after, probably when
Probably
Ty,
after.
those guys were going through at the end and moving to varsity. Little League had a surplus, and they spent about $10,000, $12,000 on equipment. and we're storing it out there.
I don't know anything about the Little League, but I'm quite certain the city doesn't buy any equipment for
Don't.
baseball,
No,
you know?
yeah,
Except for in fact, I'm not even sure the old batting cages we had at McDonald's, that was a fundraiser done
that is
by the
correct.
by the Little League outfit to
Yeah.
put those two cages side by side,
Yeah.
but they ain't been there forever. You know, I mean, I'm talking really old, but the city didn't never buy them. The city didn't buy the batting cage that sits behind Leahy Bowl. I would doubt that the city bought any batting cage that's at Bailey's complex. I would bet that those are association, whether it's Little League or whether it's softball association, probably own those. And now you're talking about the city buying a batting cage and owning it.
Yeah.
Yep. I like the idea of taking it down in the wintertime. Would it really be nice, though, and I'm really serious about this, is being able to put it in the community center and still have it be collapsible on cables. I've thought that was an easy thing to do all along, but just never did it.
It's tough to put up upstairs, but I know downstairs, you're gonna be getting, the rooms that we have previously downstairs held for economic development for possible, they're gonna
Yep,
decline that. And that would be big enough down there also.
is it tall enough?
Yes,
In the classrooms?
yes. Yep. That would be possibly an option where it didn't affect basketball or volleyball or anything upstairs, but there's space that can be utilized. Just
And if
thought.
you had them downstairs, then they could have their baseball practices or softball practices when they wanted to, rather than when the gym was available,
Yes,
you know.
Leahy Bowl, this, I guess, Marty and I, there's $1,500 in there, and that $1,500 was for windows in, the Crow's Nest at Leahy Bowl. Marty's priced it out, that $1,500 is not gonna cover it. If we do, what do you call that, high impact glass. But the other thing is we don't know what everybody wants for a window. But right now, what we have is plexiglass up there, and everything is shot. The framework and everything is shot. The glass, when the wind blows hard enough, the glass actually can pop out. And, I mean, in the winter, we have snow drifts in there. So, it needs to be replaced. What we budgeted, the $1,500, is probably gonna cover one window. And it's something that, it's gonna be, we've looked at it, Marty and I. I mean, I consider Marty pretty handy, I consider myself somewhat handy. But I don't know what, that's gonna be kind of a bugger, changing them windows out up there. But at any rate, we need to decide what, if we're going to do, I'd like to at least carry this money over into next year, because $3,000 is a much more realistic price to get those windows changed out than $1,500. And that's just, we looked at the windows, that's not labor. That's just getting the windows bought. You had a question?
No, I was just gonna suggest to you that, if you guys, you were talking about kind of figuring out what everybody wants you to do with those windows up there, and I was just gonna say, if you wanna get your information from whoever within the city government or within the baseball association, whatever, I just wanna remind you that the ultimate decision is yours.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, whatever, that's not here or there, we can decide that, what works best for everybody, but I'm just telling you that $1,500 is not gonna cover the cost of replacing the windows in that Crow's Nest, and it really needs to be done. So I would like to see at least $3,000 in there for next year's budget, and I don't know, what do you think we can get anything bought this year for $1,500?
Maybe, I don't know. I'll have to find my quote,
Yeah.
reprice it.
Well, we have a glass company 10 miles away that could come and sure give you a recommendation and estimates that you would know.
Who's that?
Oh,
Down in Cologne.
T and W.
I never thought of those guys.
Yeah.
They might put an aluminum frame insert in there and,
Yeah, they put a regular, like they have in Mitchell or in Sioux Falls even, a regular casement window, put them right in between the bricks. And you might be surprised at what the price is rather than us guessing. So
Marty got prices on
what the hell's his
windows.
name?
Becker's.
Becker's, yeah. Yep, have him come
T
and
and
take a
W
look.
Glass.
And that doesn't
T&W
cost us
Glass.
anything.
Yeah.
Huh?
T and W Glass.
Yeah, T and W. And then if we wanna, if he thinks his estimate is low enough, we can put him out for bids or whatever and see where we're at,
Yeah, first of all, I didn't know that company even existed. But the numbers that Marty got was just looking on the computer and just looking,
Sure.
so we do know, we have a ballpark of what the window's gonna cost. The first thing we need to decide is what window we're putting in there.
I- And let's let the professional give us an idea, I mean, we put him in like Sioux Falls has, 3,000 isn't gonna get one window,
I
but,
guess my question is, I don't spend any time in the crow's nest.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a guy here that does spend quite a bit of time up there, but do you want a window that opens, or do you want a solid pane of glass, or, I mean, we don't know what anybody wants or what works for everybody. Now,
Yeah.
Marty said when he used to announce up there, he would open the window so he could hear himself. And so, is that we don't know. I don't know.
in
I don't
Sioux
wanna put
Falls,
some-
they open at the bottom. Okay, how does Mitchell's open?
Slide.
They slide sideways like R2.
No
But
screen.
let's
But we
not
don't want a
put-
slider with a post in the middle.
Post in the middle, because you only end up with half a window.
Yeah.
But up at Warrior Field up on top, those windows will slide, but you can also take them out, and the post is gone on
Yeah.
those windows, so there's some different variable options.
You at least need to have one window that can open so that you can have communications with the people on the field. Many times the umpire will want to tell the crow's nest something. We don't have that communication. It's hard, and it'd really be hard without the window being able to be open.
My idea was a awning window.
Oh, okay.
So it's one big pane of glass and then you can still open it.
Yep.
It cranks out
Yeah.
and up.
I know the ones we have up there, they're as cheap as we could get. And they're
Not plexiglass.
not
but-
plexiglass, but they're space shuttle window glass, whatever that's called, I forget.
Lexan or,
Huh?
Yes.
Lexan, thank you very much, yep. Yep, so, but, and as far as I'm concerned, like these windows that we have, and I always wanted to do this, a couple of pieces of plywood would stop every bit of snow from coming in if we just covered them at the end of the season. So,
But it'd be nice to have a good window in there so you didn't have to worry about it.
don't disagree, I don't disagree, but, if we're
Um,
talking $20,000 for windows, then that
Well-
plywood's pretty cheap.
Yeah, we'll see what we can get done.
Yep,
The 6,000 was for McDonald's Field, the sprinklers and the sod and all that, so that'll obviously go away next year. City Park was $5,000, and that was to redo the roof on the gazebo, and that was a project that is probably not gonna get done this year. We got a lot of stuff to get done, so we'd like to see that $5,000 slide back over. The shingles and everything up there are rotting, and so we gotta get something done with that gazebo here in the next couple of years. Let's see.
Equipment,
Equipment, you put 6,000 in there for.
60.
Oh, 60,000.
Oh, there you go.
good catch.
Minor difference.
Just
1-0 is all.
Just messing with you,
Just
Mark.
one.
Yeah, just
So-
want to make sure you're awake.
So, here's where we're at with the parks. We've talked about this multiple times. One of our concerns is that we have employees that work out of the Parks Department that are seasonal help, and some of those employees have told us that this is their last season. I know we've had this conversation with you guys before. The other thing is we're due for usually about every other year, we purchase a mower. We went 2 years now without purchase, well, we purchased that Ventrek 2 years ago, and then we didn't purchase any mowers, so, we're due for a John Deere, actually, is what we're due for. But Marty and I have been we're talking about, how to make things more functional, do more with less. We've looked at what it's gonna cost us to hire another person in the Parks Department, and I had Rhonda figure those numbers out with
They're not on here.
personal services and everything. To add another employee full-time to the parks or the cemetery was gonna be about $62,000 a year. That's at the minimum rate, 2008. That would be the minimum starting rate for this upcoming 2024. So, like we've talked about before, Marty's super busy for 8 months out of the year, but then he's got 4 months out of the year where he's not that busy. So, we're just looking at options on what's the best way to get things done. And that we purchased that Ventrek mower 2 years ago. I know everybody likes to make fun of the Ventrek. I get people from the public say all the time, that fancy new mower, $50,000 mower. They like to really throw rocks at that thing, but I tell you what, it has been probably one of the most productive additions to the parks and cemetery that's ever been added. That thing does things that nothing else can do, and the amount of equipment that we can buy to work hand in hand with that thing is invaluable. We just purchased a sod cutter for those guys to start using out in the cemetery, so when we have a burial, they just went out and did it the other day. It was a $600 attachment that fits on the front of that thing, and you can just cut sod all day long with it, just slicker than a whistle. And but so the mower itself was like,
The tractor itself's like 30,000.
yep. But we can set that tractor up with a finish cut deck, and we can also set it up with a field groomer, an edger, and then it rolls out and it sifts out and it levels out the agar line. So we could mow all the side hills on Leahy Bowl. We can mow Leahy Bowl. We can do McDonald's Field, and we can do all of Bailey's complex with one mower and the attachments that go on it. And that would eliminate the work that like 4 mowers do on a normal day basis, because he can mow Leahy Bowl like in an hour and a half, and it takes like 4 hours to mow it with a grasshopper
Yeah,
mower.
when it's thick, more than that sometimes.
So, it would be a great addition to our, rather than buying more. One thing that we've learned about the grasshoppers, they're a great flat surface mower. They're probably the best when it comes to that, but it's gotta be flat. If you get on any kind of a side hill or anything, those mowers really struggle. The John Deere mowers are much better at mowing any kind of a, side hill or up and down or whatever. But they don't bag. Now, John Deere is making a box mower again. I have not seen one, but Marty asked and they do make it. We would have never went to the grasshoppers had John Deere not quit making the box mowers with the baggers on them. We would still be using those. They are a better mower for what we use them for. Right now we have 6 grasshoppers. And that's where we're talking about, start replacing those grasshoppers with something else like the Ventrek. that we can mow, just get out and mow and go. Yeah, and I don't know how the city ever got into bagging. So
That was my next question, was why are we bagging everything?
yeah, we spend so much time bagging. And I think we're kind of seeing this with Leahy Bowl right now. The outfield in Leahy Bowl is dead. It's dying. Marty's it's been kind of a struggle to get that outfield to stay healthy all season. So it needs to be aerated, it needs to be plugged, and it needs to be overseeded. And they did it to McDonald's last year, and that field is just crazy green this year. Like, we haven't even watered it. And it's the healthiest grass we have in the whole city right now. So we did just this week, we put in an order for a aerator and overseeder for that Ventrec mower that we have, and we gotta start doing that too. But I think on the other hand, when you don't bag on the ball fields, you have to mow twice as much. Otherwise, if you let them get too long, then you have dead grass laying on the surface. So that's kind of why that they've always bagged Leahy Bowl in the ball fields, because you don't want the dead grass to just be laying on top, and then you get that, it doesn't look very nice. So if we do not bag, we need to mow twice, at least mow more than what we're currently doing, but. Yeah, we're just trying to be the most efficient that we can be. And when you have a piece of equipment like that has the versatility that it has, it's pretty amazing. But I would like to see us get away from the grasshoppers. They are just somewhat, maybe if we can start getting John Deere box mowers again, that's, the other thing with the grasshoppers is they're super tough in the cemetery, because the grasshopper mowers have that big metal grass catcher on them. And like I said, again, the grasshopper mowers they stand alone by themselves if you're just mowing level ground and you don't have a lot of obstacles. But when you have kids operating them, or even if nobody that's ever driven it before, when you get in the cemetery and you forget that you got that big bagger on the back and they're zero turning, so you hit the brakes and you go to whip around and that box smacks into a headstone or a tree or anything, they're tough. They're a little bit difficult to operate. But, so that's the number for, it's like if we put all the attachments on that thing, to do all the ball fields, like I said, that could eliminate several mowers, and one guy can have access to that mower just for ball fields, and he can do.
And the grounds.
In the grounds.
And the grounds outside.
And with that one piece of equipment, there's no doubt in our mind that he can take care of all that. And like down at Bailey's Complex, we're talking about the walking trails and everything down there. We need to get, it's 9 o'clock already.
It is.
But is 60 the number for that, or
Yep, that's with all the
With the
attachments.
attachments.
with every attachment you could possibly have, huh?
That's with all,
The ones we want.
and the attachments that we're asking for would be to take care of the agar lime, the grass, take care of everything, edging around the outfield, edging the infields. But it takes out all the, like when you're doing agar lime, if it's got a drag on it, a leveling drag, so if you have any kind of imperfect, low spots or high spots, it takes them out and it makes everything just perfectly level. It's an amazing machine.
There's quotes on it.
I just sent you a link to what he's looking at. Both of you.
In cemetery, we'll
Yes.
just quickly go through cemetery because there's not much in there. If you see the numbers slid over, and there's an adjustment to it, it's just that it's a little higher low. I guess we have to take note of fuel, and we'll have to I'll have to go back and review fuel and see where I come up with, but we're not asking for anything in cemetery, no new equipment. The only thing that we're asking is to keep the $10,000 in there. And I'm gonna see what I can get done this year. But right now we're redoing sprinklers out in the cemetery. Just finished another one up yesterday. In that main road, at least those two main roads. We want to get asphalt on them, and we want to do road improvements out in the cemetery. And it's something that we've talked about in the cemetery, but Marty and I didn't really put any numbers in for it. Was our old directory out at the cemetery. It's been there forever. And it's to the point where it's gonna be needing some repairs. The wood's getting pretty old and the roof's on it's bad, and the plexiglass that covers all and it's kind of a process. Every time we have a burial, you gotta go write them in, and there's a new piece of equipment out there. It's kind of like an ATM machine, and it's a kiosk, and so it's a directory right in a touch screen. It even prints out, so it'll print you out a map of the cemetery, and then it'll have a X on it where the person that you're looking for, or the plot that you're looking for. And then we've had a lot of requests by people. There's no place in the cemetery to just sit. Like, if people want to go out there and just, like before or after the funeral, just some benches or some place to just to sit in the cemetery. That's been a constant request since the day I became Public Works Director. So we're just kind of planning ahead in the future for, something's definitely going to have to be done with that directory here in the next, 3 or 4 years. So
Where's this kiosk thing now?
we don't own one.
Oh, we don't, oh, you're just talking about you could get one.
That would replace the current directory. We would take the old directory down completely, and our software that we have for the cemetery right now is our mapping software, whatever the name of it is. Every person that we have record of that is buried in the cemetery is on that software. So it's just a matter of downloading that software into the kiosk, and then it's all there. And then every time we have a new burial, Brandy just adds it into the system on that software, and then it's just a matter of pushing a button and it updates the kiosk and it's on there. And the kiosks themselves, you can actually walk up to them, and it's got a barcode on it, and you can just take a picture of it, and you put the app on there, and then you have the map on your phone too.
Okay, I'm wondering though, with today's technology and the phones that everybody has, why do we even need a directory out there? If we have access to the city's records, and we do, type in your last name, okay?
And we can-
And it shows you where you are.
You can put that out there, and that's like our software supports that. It does. But not everybody has those phones.
I know.
It's just,
Hanging in the directory, there's a QR code where you just take the picture and
it's on a piece of paper, and it's in the kiosk right now. And you just all you have to do is go down there, and you have to put the app on your phone, and then you have to do the process of taking a picture of it, and then you have to download that, then that picture goes to the app, and it's you or me. Yes, I get it, but not everybody does. And if you put something out there, it has to work for everybody.
But I'm saying, we don't need anything out there, because we already have that same information on your phone at Winter SD, however you get to the Winter site, and you can go to cemetery, and you click right on it, type in the word McEachran, my grandma, showed me right what block and what lot. But to have all that structure out there, I don't know that we need to maintain that. And I wonder about maintaining a kiosk with a electronic computer system and the damage that we set ourselves up for, having that out there. When we all have one right in our pocket, and even the 80-year-old people have a grandchild right there next to them that says, we can find your grave.
You're taking a pretty good leap. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that, we were out there yesterday putting in sprinkler systems, and there was like 4 people that came up, and they're searching around for people, and they couldn't find them. They couldn't do it, and they had the phones, and they were doing it. They don't have a map, and
It's a hard cemetery to navigate to.
It's
It's a hard cemetery to navigate because every time we added new sections, the blocks are numbered. You don't renumber the whole cemetery, and then
Yeah,
they're not in order basically. And
I understand.
Gentlemen, we're at the 1 hour mark. If you'd like, I'll excuse you and we'll wrap things up.
Very good.
the simplest committee, and it went the longest.
Of course.
Well, Brad's in here, he's,
What?